sarva asha. Jamne jamne Prabhu se Chakuran Diloje Jamne jamne Prabhu se Divya Gyan Rede Prakashita Divya Gyan Rede Prakashita Prema Bhakti Aite Avijavana Sayate Prema Bhakti Aite Avijavana Sayate Ayahara Charita Very Ayahara Charita Shri Guru Karuna Sandhu Adamajanara Bandhu Shri Guru Karuna Sandhu Adamajanara Bandhu Lokana Loke Rajivana Lokana Loke Rajivana Ah Prabhu Padajaya Jayamaye Padajaya Ah Prabhu Padajaya Jayamaye Padajaya Vyasa Kusutra Bhavana Vyasa Kusutra Bhavana Srila Prabhupada Vajita Pavana Jai Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada ki Nama Om Jai Sacinandana Gaura Jai Sacinandana Gaura Hari Gaura 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 Hari Jai Sacinandana Gaura Hari Gaura 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 Hari Nitai Sacinandana Gaura Hari Nitai Pada Kamala, Nitai Pada Kamala, Nitai Pada Kamala, Gaura Hari. Nitai Pada Kamala. Nitai Pada Kamala, Nitai Pada Kamala, Nitai Pada Kamala, Gaura Hari. Ram Jaya Nityananda Ram, Nityananda Ram Jaya Nityananda Ram. Nityananda Ram Jai Nityananda Ram, Nityananda Ram Jai Nityananda Ram. Jaya Nitai Jaya Gaura Kamala Koti Chandra Shushitala Nitai Pada Kamala Nitai Pada Kamala Koti Chandra Shushitala Nitai Pada Kamala Shushitala Decha Jaya Jagata Juda Decha Jaya Heno Nita Dineva Radha Krishna Paitena Heno Nita Dineva Radha Krishna Paitena Heno Nita Dineva Radha Krishna Paitena Heno Dridakari Dara Nitara Pai Dridakari Dara Se Sambandha Nahi Ja Grita Janma Khelota Se Sambandha Se Pashu Bhada Dura Cha Se Pashu Bhada Dura Cha Nitai na bolile mukhe Majila samsara sukhe Vidyakule kiye khori beta Vidyakule Ahankare matahaya Nitai pada asariya Asatya re satya kori mane Nitayera karuna have Brajarada Krishna pave Nitayera Dharanita charana dukani Dharanita charana adukane Nitayeda charana satya tanhara sevaka nitya Nitayeda charana satya tanhara sevaka nitya Nitai pada sada kada asa Nitai pada sada kada asa Natno tama vada duki Nitai more kada shuki Narotama Vadatuki Nitai More Karasuki Brakaranga Chara Nirapasa Brakaranga Chara Nirapasa Nitai Pada Kamala Koti Chandra Sushitala Nitai Pada Kamala Koti Chandra Sushitala Dechaya Jagatha Judaya Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Nityanandaram 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 Jaya Nityanandaram Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Jai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Haribo, Haribo, Haribol Gaur Haribo. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nityananda Trayodasi ki jai, Narottam Das Thakur ki jai, Gaur Premanandi. So we read the translation and the purport. Oh, someone has a translation? You can read translation. The purport is. Someone has a translation or the purport is there? Only the purport. Okay. Okay, Prabhupada gives it. Okay. So we can take turns. You want to? Yeah, the purport, because Prabhupada explains the meaning of the song there. So you want to go?
This is a very nice song sung by Nityananda Trayodasi. It advises that Nitai Pada, the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. Kamala means lotus and Pada means feet. Our shelter where one will get the soothing moonlight not only of one, but of millions of moons. We can just imagine the aggregate total value of soothing shine of millions of moons. In this material world, Jagat, which is progressing toward hell, there is always a blazing fire, and everyone is struggling hard without finding peace. Therefore, if the world wants to have real peace,
Actually, there are a couple of purports of that song, Prabhupada in different instances, almost identical. So I have one, you are reading the other one, and I was hearing both purports today. Yeah, same. So it's different purports, but different instances, but it's exactly the same, pretty much. So one appearance of Lord Nityananda, I think, was in 1968. He sang the song and then he gave the short class based on that, on the song, and that was the class. And I mean, it's Bengali also, so he easy. No? I mean, you more or less can get. You know Bengali? Alpo, Jani. Okay, so Jai. So today is Sri Nityananda Prabhu Appearance Day. So would be good that we read some of the pastimes of Lord Nityananda. There is this book, I don't know if some of you know, Panchatattva, put together by Satyaraj Prabhu. I had it many years ago, and somehow I was looking for it and somebody brought it. It's a pretty good book because it gives the sort of essence in summary of different sources of the Caitanya tradition, as it's called amongst academics, and some of the things that Prabhupada himself presents, some of the points from the songs. So I thought we can read some of this. Each of the Panchatattva has a number of pages dedicated. Then I thought we can read some, can discuss a bit later. Nityanandan aham bande karnilambitamauktikam Caitanya graha rupena pavitrikrita bhutalam. Salutations to Sri Nityananda Prabhu, who has a single pearl suspended from one of his ears, who is the elder brother of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and who is the purifier of the earth. Curiously, there is no authoritative biography of Nityananda Prabhu. And while Rupa, Jiva, and Raghunath do not even mention him once in their collective writings, Sanatana Goswami refers to him only briefly in the invocation of his Vaishnava Toshani. Nonetheless, the world is fortunate that Mahaprabhu's biographers have devoted large sections of their work to Nityananda's life, which can be pieced together from this massive literature and also from later medieval Vaishnava texts such as Bhakti Ratnakara and Prem Vilas. Nityananda Prabhu was born in the village of Ekachakra, also called Ekchaka, in the country of Rahid, Radhadesh, some 8 miles east of where today stands the Malarpura station of the EI Railway within the modern Birbhum district of West Bengal. His birth site is commemorated by a small temple named Garba Vasa and is visited by throngs of pilgrims to this day. Everyone has been to Ekachakra? Yeah, you've been, right? All right. Iskcon Temple, yeah, but the same place is there for his birth site. Although no authorized account of his birth is extant, it is said that he was born in or near the year 1474, and that his father's name was Hadai Oja. Hadai was a well-known Pandit, having descended from a good Brahmana family, whose origins were in Mithila, and his wife's name was Padmavati. The day of the bright fortnight of the month of Magh. This auspicious day was made even more auspicious by Nityananda Prabhu's birth. As a child, Nitai, as he was called, had a close circle of friends, and together they used to imitate the pastimes of Krishna and his associates. Once they dressed themselves as demigods and petitioned the Lord to alleviate the burdened earth of Kali Yuga. Nityananda Prabhu had a playmate who was dressed as the ailing earth, along with other children. They took their game to the Ganges, where they addressed Lord Vishnu. At that time, one of the children hid behind a rock and spoke in a grave voice, "I will soon be born in Mathura to lighten the oppression of the earth." The boys enjoyed themselves as children do, while becoming completely absorbed in Krishna Lila. On another occasion, Nitai and his friends gathered in an imitation village to celebrate the marriage of Vasudeva and Devaki, the parents of Krishna. The following day, they made their playhouse into the prison of Kamsa and enacted the entire story of Krishna's birth. Once, while acting out this episode, Nitai transformed the area into a cowherd settlement and took Krishna there, deceiving Kamsa by substituting Yogamaya for Krishna within the prison. Performing these intricately woven stories on a daily basis, the children became quite close and came to love Nitai as their natural leader and friend. He was the most imaginative among them, and they all laughed and shared joyful exchanges when he would dress them like demons. When they staged the Putana story, for example, they would engage in uproarious laughter when one of their friends pretended to suck the demoness breast like baby Krishna. Sometimes Nitai would construct demons out of toys, naming them Bakasura, Agasura, Vatsasura, and so on, and would go through the motions of battling with them and finally killing them. His friends were so entertained by his play acting that they would come back day after day just to see him do it again and again. Once in a while, his friends would take the roles of the elephant, Kubala Yapida, or the restless, Chanura and Mustika. Nitai would play fight with them, knock them down, and drag them off by the hair. By the end of the day, their stomachs would ache from laughter, and they would tell their parents about the great fun and joy with Nitai in play acting. Sometimes Nitai would bring his friends to the local milkman and have them watch him steal butter and yogurt, as Krishna did in his Braja Lila. The milkman, of course, did not complain. In fact, he was an accomplice, setting aside excess dairy for Nitai and his friends, expecting them to show up. All the adults in Ekachakra adore Nitai. They were fascinated by this unique little boy, and they love him as their own. Seeing his total absorption in Krishna and the avatars of Vishnu, they suspected that he might be some sort of incarnation himself. He was relentless, day after day, enacting a different pastime, and did it so skillfully that his neighbors wondered, how is it that he is so talented? How does he know the story so well? No one has explained all these details to him. One day he imitated Krishna's pastimes of lifting Govardhan Hill, with all aspects of the story acted out perfectly. On another, he constructed a replica of Vrindavan, performing many parts of Krishna's Brajalila with marked realism. And on still another, he pretended to steal the clothes of the gopis and visit the wives of the brahmanas engaged in sacrifice. On one occasion, one of the boys dressed as Akruta and took Krishna and Balaram away from Vrindavan on the order of Kamsa. Nitai cried in grief, feeling the separation of the gopis. Tears of love flowed from his eyes. His acting was so authentic that it made all who watched question whether he was merely acting or in some way experiencing the part he played. This was true whether he was playing Krishna, Balaram, or even Vamana, or other incarnations of the Lord. Nitai, where have you learned all this? One of the neighborhood ladies asked. Nityananda enjoyed her question. They are my own divine pastimes, he said, and I am allowing you to see them. The townspeople laughed, shaking their heads. They did not know what to make of him. This is the famous one. Among his most convincing roles was that of Lakshman, the brother of Ram, which in point of fact intimated his divine identity as Balaram. The boys and adults who watched him perform were covered by the Yoga Maya potency and could only relish their relationship with him as little Nitai of Ekachakra. This is elaborated upon in Vrindavan Das Thakur's Chaitanya Bhagavat, Adi Lila, chapter 9. Nityananda Prabhu, in the guise of Lakshman, spoke dramatically. For example, standing outside a make-believe version of Sugriva's palace, he said in a fit of anger, "Come out, you wretched monkey. My Lord Ram is not pleased by your actions. He is waiting for the resolution to our dilemma, which you hold in your hands while you leisurely sit around, making merry and enjoying low-class women. If I am to spare your life, then go to Ram as fast as you can and offer him your help." In this way, Nitai and his friends performed scene after scene from the Leela of Ram and Lakshman. Since Nityananda was actually Balaram, of whom Lakshman is an incarnation, he experienced the various moods of Ram's younger brother. He often added appropriate dialogue that displayed his personal involvement in the role. And his audience invariably vacillated between believing that he was only playing a part to feeling that there was something supernatural about his entirely believable play acting. As he entered into a second identity that only he could fully see, the residents of Ekachakra were given a hint of his divine identity. Some of them knew that Nityananda's acting constituted a play within a play, and that this inner play was a manifestation of the highest reality of life, the Leela of the Lord. For the first 12 years of his manifest Leela, Nityananda Prabhu stayed in Ekachakra and shared loving pastimes with his neighbors. Just before his 13th year, however, a traveling mendicant, whom some say was the distinguished saint Lakshmipati Tirtha, later it will be explained that actually it seems like it wasn't him, that he met Lakshmipati Tirtha later on, came like a shiksha, came to his home and was welcomed as a guest by Hadai Pandit. Nityananda's affectionate father, with deep respect and Brahminical hospitality, Hadai Pandit offered his eminent guest all that he had. "Please, feel free to take whatever you like," he said. "My home is your home." So here where it's come from. The visiting ascetic explained that his was a simple life and that his needs were minimal. However, he said he needed a traveling companion, and young Nitai would be an appropriate person for such a service. Reluctantly, Hadai Pandit agreed to let his son go. So imagine someone comes to your house and you say, whatever you want, sometimes you have to be careful. You can take anything you want. He says, okay, give me your son. After all, he had promised to give the sannyasi whatever he needed, and to deny him his desire would be to abrogate a fundamental scriptural injunction. I guess abrogate means breaking, disregard, disobey. Nityananda Prabhu had been wanting to go to Navadvip for some time, but he was about 100 miles north of Ekachakra, and he was just a young boy. He knew that Mahaprabhu had already appeared in the world, and was involved in childhood pastimes in which he was concealing his mission and his divine identity. I will enjoy going to holy places of pilgrimage with this wonderful sannyasi, Nityananda Prabhu thought. And after some time, when Mahaprabhu is ready, I will go to Navadvip. In this way, Nityananda happily departed Ekachakra with the traveling ascetic. But his happiness was not shared by his parents. It was like a nightmare for them. How had they agreed to let the sannyasi take their beloved son Nitai? What had come over them? They felt that they must have been covered by a blanket of illusion to let their young Nitai go. He would be living a hard life, they thought, always on the road, and because of this, they would miss his sweet association. The aging Hadai Pandit could not tolerate Nitai's absence, and after some time he passed away, bitten by the snake bite of separation. Nitai traveled from holy place to holy place for the next 20 years until he was 32, receiving instructions and friendship from his elderly sannyasi companion. Among other pilgrimage sites, he went to Baidyanath, Gaya, Kashi, Prayag, Hastinapur, Dwaraka, Siddhapur, Shivakanchi, Vishnukanchi, Kurukshetra, Prabhash, Naimisharanya, Ayodhya, Haridwar, Godavari, Mathura, and Vrindavan. He journeyed the length and breadth of India and sanctified the subcontinent by his presence, making holy places even holier. His pastime of traveling is reminiscent of Balaram, who traveled extensively, visiting all major places of pilgrimage as the battle of Kurukshetra waged on. According to the Bhakti Ratnakar, Nitai spent extended time in the holy land of Pandharpur, Maharashtra, where his other self, Vishwarup, Mahaprabhu's elder brother, had passed away. At this time, he absorbed Vishwarup's Shakti into his own being. This is confirmed in Caitanya Bhagavat Adi 6.81 and in the Gaura Ganodesha Dipika 65. As Nitai continued to travel, feeling the ecstasy of these sacred areas, he manifested his avadut nature more and more. His mode of activity and general behavior became increasingly unexplainable and erratic. No one could understand what motivated him or why he behaved in that way. For example, he was known to dance ecstatically with the cloth meant to cover his loins wrapped instead around his head. That means the copings. Not to try at home, they say. Or he would sit in Malini's lap and suck her breast as though he were a baby. She was well beyond childbearing age, and he a man of 32 years. But what is more, his suckling actually brought forth milk. Nityananda Prabhu's strange behavior will be explored further in the next verse. Nityananda was considered an avadut sannyasi, although it is said that he never formally adopted the sannyas order. Avadutas, meaning the pure ones, are usually associated with the Shaivite tradition, but there is a little-known branch of Vaishnava sannyasis known as Turyatil Avaduta. They are described in the Narada Parivajaka Upanishad, the Turiyatit Avadut Upanishad, and the Brihad Avadut Upanishad. Divinely eccentric, these Avadut sannyasis were known to go about naked. The Caitanya Bhagavat and Bhakti Ratnakara both include passages depicting Nityananda in public without clothes, are at peace with the world. That was an explanation within a bracket. Are indifferent to pain and sorrow, and have a pronounced disregard for rules, regulations, and caste observances. Several, if not all, of these characteristics could be detected in Nityananda Prabhu. His behavior was so erratic that some people would up and run merely at the sound of his name. Some people would stand up. Caitanya Bhagavat Madhya Lila 3.169. Indeed, even Advaita Acharya jokingly referred to him as Sahaja Pagal. You know what Pagal means? Crazy. Yeah, that's a common word in Mayapur. To me, Pagalach. You're crazy. Pagal. Videshi Pagal, they say. Westerners are all crazy. Videshi Pagal. Pagal Videshi. Okay, so there are many, many pastimes like that. There's an explanation of his relationship with Mahavendra Puri, and also some Shastric reference how the famous Lakshmipati Tirtha finally comes into his life, and through him he meets Madhavendra Puri, and there is a very intimate relationship between them two, or them three. And when he travels to Braj and the different ecstatic manifestations in his body, all this is described in this narration. But I would like to read the time when he comes back to Navadvip. Sure. Does he say that? No, but did you say that? Did I say? Did I read? Oh. And drag or something like that, huh? I heard that there was the Ganga flowing, or it manifested at that time or something like that. I think my Guru Maharaj once he said something that the Ganga was manifested for his pastime or something like that. I cannot say. I don't know. But there is a little river that's supposed to be the Jamuna, no? At the back. No, that's there. So I don't know if that, because like Prabhupada says in the first canto, Ganga Jamuna, Jamuna Ganga, like that. When they say that Parikshit Maharaj went to and it's actually, he says it's the Jamuna. So we may have to. Yeah, but I think my Guru Maharaj once in one safari, he explained something. I think a similar question. I'm not so familiar about that. Where the Ganges doesn't flow. Yeah, so yeah. It's like, like the spiritual world is a place where there's no need for the sun and the moon. That doesn't mean that the sun and the moon do not appear sometimes. And sometimes there's a different date, but the full moon will come just because of it's just to enhance the props, like the drama. So I would have to research that. Okay. All right. So let's read a little about when they encountered each other. Okay, little background, we have some time. Nityananda Prabhu eventually came to a beautiful banyan tree named Sringara Bhatta, which later came to be called Nityananda Bhatta. Here he became completely mad with love for Krishna. He would sit down, then stand up, then sit down again. He took flowers from the area surrounding the tree and, lying down, placed them on various parts of his body. Then he would get up and scream as the flowers fell to the ground. His spiritual love sickness could no longer be contained in his mind and heart. And he felt as though it would burst forth from his body in all directions. With this overflowing intensity, he cried out, "Where is Krishna? Where is my very life and soul?" As these words emanated from his anxious lips, he shivered uncontrollably, and tears of love poured from his eyes like torrents of rain. At that moment, he was seized with a startling inner vision, which showed him that Mahaprabhu had completed his secretive childhood pastimes. Mahaprabhu was now overtly engaged in his mission, revealing it for everyone to see. This realization made Nityananda the Avadut. How do you say this? Chortle? 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 Chortle. Laugh. Chuckle. Acha. Right. Yeah, Satyaraj Prabhu. Yes, big words. Chortle, or all words, with unbridled affection for his spiritual brother. And so from Shingarabhat, or Nityanandabhat, he proceeded to Navadvip to join in Mahaprabhu's pastime. The year was 1506, and after arduous travel through dense forests in the trance-like state of frantic devotion, Nityananda Prabhu reached the land of Nadia. Relishing the spiritual environment, he went directly to the house of Nandanacharya, a great devotee who lived at the southern boundary of Antardvip, where the Ganga and Jalangi meet. His house was enclosed by a well-known garden that was called Sri Ishodian. This garden was reminiscent of Braj, with berry bushes, cuckoos, peacocks, fragrant flowers, and varieties of fruit trees. Nityananda felt at home here. He thought, Mahaprabhu is actually my younger brother and is anxious to see me. Let me play a game with him and see if he will find me here. Aware of Nityananda's presence, I remember once we went to have Darshan there with my Guru Maharaj. I was just following. I sometimes I didn't even know where I was. I was just carrying things, anxious that I didn't forget anything. So we went with some devotees. This is a long time back, late 80s. So just a handful of people. I forgot now what was the. And then we went out. So I was walking next to my Guru Maharaj, and we were going back to Mayapur, Iskcon Mayapur. And then he stopped, and then he saw towards the Ganges, and that place is there, the little forest. And he said, once upon a time, Lord Nityananda and Gauranga were playing right there. He said like this. And then he kept walking. I remember that. A word of Nityananda. In 1,000 ages of Brahma. The spot where the two lords first met is today commemorated by a small temple called Sri Gaura Nityananda Mandir. That's to the left of Mayapur, right? You come out of Mayapur, Iskcon, then you go to the left. Huh? No, if you come out of the main gate, there's only one left and one right. So I'm going left. Yeah, get right? Oh, there's another one. Right. Soon after their initial meeting, Mahaprabhu took Nityananda to Srivas Thakur's home to offer Vyasa Puja, or Guru worship to Nitai, who is the original Guru for all mankind. However, Nityananda grabbed all the puja articles from Mahaprabhu and worshipped him instead. Nitai kept repeating, Nimai Pandit, Mahaprabhu, is my Lord and Master. Nimai Pandit is my Lord and Master. There was constant competition as to who will serve whom. Their love for each other is indescribable. From this point until Mahaprabhu left Navadvip for Jagannath Puri, Nitai was always at his side. Both Vrindavan Das Thakur and Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami unequivocally assert that Nitai holds the entrance key to Mahaprabhu's heart. The Gaudiya tradition is emphatic. One who thinks that he can attain love of God without first attaining the mercy of Nityananda Ram is living in an hallucination. Mahaprabhu asked Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur to serve as his door-to-door preachers, spreading the message of love of God to every home in Navadvip. It was at this point that Nitai and Haridas met the two brothers, Jagananda and Madhavananda Bandopandya. That's their surname, I guess. Also known as Jagai and Madai. Jagananda and Madhavananda, known as Jagai and Madai. They were the descendants of an illustrious Brahmana dynasty but had abandoned the pious ways of their forefathers for a life of debauchery. When the two emissaries of Mahaprabhu's mercy first met them, Jagai and Madai were, as usual, in a drunken stupor, creating havoc throughout the village. Nitai felt compassion on these fallen souls and reasoned that if they could be rectified, then Mahaprabhu's mission would become even more well received in Navadvip. Approaching the two wayward brothers on the street, Nitai begged them to chant the holy name of Hari and to taste the sweet nectar of Krishna consciousness. But the two villains just chased Nitai down the road, shouting profanities and calling him foul names. The next day, Mahaprabhu asked his two preachers to return to the scene of the incident. This they did, but upon their arrival, they received more than just abusive language. Along with harsh verbal threats, Madai threw a broken clay pot that came crashing down on Nitai's divine head, causing him to bleed. Although Nitai's body is perfectly spiritual, he manifested this lila so that Jagai and Madai could attain liberation. This act of violence caused heartbreak to all who witnessed it, including Haridas. Even Jagai felt remorse, scolding his brother, who was about to hit Nitai again. Jagai advised Madai to desist, telling him that his behavior was outrageous. When Mahaprabhu heard what had happened, he became infuriated and rushed to the area himself. How could anyone harm a gentle soul like Nitai? Summoning his divine disc-like weapon, chakra, which is flaming and radiant, Mahaprabhu was prepared to kill the two repellent brothers on the spot, forcing them to taste the wrath of God. His anger, however, was assuaged, pacified, by Nitai, who reminded him that the majority of people in this age are as fallen as Jagai and Madai, and that it is his mission to liberate them with love, not with violence. Hearing Nitai's words, Mahaprabhu was willing to forgive Jagai, for he had tried to protect Nityananda Prabhu. But Madai, who perpetrated the most evil deed of harming Nitai, needed to be forgiven by Nitai himself. Nitai's mercy knows no bounds, and he quickly forgave Madai for all he had done. When Jagai and Madai saw the loving exchange between Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, and further observed Nitai's forgiving nature toward them, their hearts were changed. They resolved to become devotees and enthusiastic supporters of Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan mission. Seeing their sincerity, Mahaprabhu took all their sins on his own head, which for a few brief moments turned his beautiful golden body into an unsightly blackish color. Indeed, when Yamaraj's assistant Chitragupta tried to tally Jagai and Madai's collective sins, he could not do so, and he collapsed from sheer exhaustion. After the incidents with Nitai, however, Jagai and Madai set the highest standard of devotional service by constantly chanting the holy name of Krishna at least 100,000 times daily, and instructing others in the minutiae. Yeah, it's Latin, so I can understand, but I don't know how to pronounce. Of Vaishnava religion. Madai, in particular, felt culpable for his heinous offense, and one day approached Nityananda Prabhu asking for a special atonement. Nitai instructed him to regularly clean a particular bathing place in Navadvip. He did this and other allied services for the rest of his life. The bathing place still exists today, and it's called Jagai and Madai Ghat, where all the offenses are forgiven. No? So one goes, generally the parikrams go there. Mahaprabhu and Nityananda spent several years together relishing Sankirtan pastimes in Navadvip. As fate would have it, however, Mahaprabhu soon decided to take sannyas, renounce order of life, and to spread his Sankirtan mission throughout all of India. Nityananda Prabhu was one of the few confidential associates who knew that this event was about to transpire, and he accompanied Mahaprabhu to Katwa, where the sannyas initiation was to take place. Soon after Mahaprabhu's renunciation ceremony, the two divine brothers went to Puri together. On the way, an interesting pastime occurred. Just 6 miles north of Puri, in the village of Kamalapura, Mahaprabhu bathed in the Bargi river and left his sannyas staff in Nityananda Prabhu's hand while in the water. After bathing, Mahaprabhu went to the adjacent Shiva temple known as Kapoteshwara. At that time, Nityananda Vaduta broke the sacred rod in 3 pieces and threw them into the river. In this case, there are several reasons for his unexplainable Avaduta behavior. Number 1, Mahaprabhu was a new sannyasi and according to tradition was supposed to carry the staff until he was in the later stage of sannyas. Nityananda reasoned, however, that since Mahaprabhu was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was already superior to even the most senior sannyasi, and so he need not to carry the sannyasi rod. Number 2, for a series of rather complex reasons, Mahaprabhu had taken sannyasis from a monk in the impersonalistic school of sannyasis. This particular class of ascetics carry a single staff to affirm their belief that they are one with God. Mahaprabhu, however, was in reality a Vaishnava sannyasi, and they carry a triple rod staff, indicating that they have surrendered body, mind, and words to the service of the Lord. For this reason, too, Nityananda Prabhu broke the Lord's staff into 3 pieces. Number 3, finally, it is said that Mahaprabhu wanted to arrive in Puri alone, to relish his meeting with Lord Jagannath in perfect solitude and to meditate on him without any interruption. Having Nitai break Mahaprabhu's sannyas rod allowed him to feign angered and run ahead of his traveling companions. This enabled him to arrive in Puri before the others, running with unparalleled enthusiasm to see his Lord. With tears in his eyes, he went directly to Jagannath's temple and was able to feel the ecstasy of the Lord's association before his retinue arrived. This was made possible by the breaking of the sannyas rod. The river into which Nitai threw the broken pieces is now called Dandabanga Nadi, the river of the broken staff. Soon after this Dandabanga Nadi Lila, Mahaprabhu and Nityananda arrived in Puri and enjoyed being in the holy dham together. But this love in union was not to last, and Mahaprabhu quickly left Nityananda there. Proceeding on a tour of South India and was to last for 2 years, the separation felt by these 2 spiritual brothers cannot be described. When Mahaprabhu returned, he was pleased to see that Nitai had developed a movement in Puri with the help of some important local devotees, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Mukunda Datta, Jagadanandana Pandit, and others. However, the movement in Navadip had been sorely neglected, and so Mahaprabhu made plans to send Nityananda, his most reliable Sankirtan commander, back to Bengal to develop the mission there. Mahaprabhu asked Kadadhar Das, Raghunath Vaidya, Krishnadas Pandit, Ramdas, Parameshwari Das, Purandara, Pandit, Govinda Ghosh, Bashu Ghosh, and others to assist Nitai in his mission. And in November 1511, he sent them all to the land of Bengal. Jai Lord Nityananda Ram Ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki, Jai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari. Any questions? Any points? There's so much more. Not so much more, but quite a lot. But I thought select the main pastimes. Lord Nityananda. Srila Prabhupada says in his explanations, a few classes, I think 2 or 3 classes on Lord Nityananda, and also in his purports to the songs of Narottam Das Thakur and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that Lord Nityananda, he says that about Lord Nityananda, and he also says about Rupa Goswami. They embody Caitanya, Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam. Manobhistam means what the Lord wants, what is in one's mind. That's Manobhistam. So Lord Chaitanya wanted this movement of Sankirtan to be manifested. Actually, Prabhupada backpedals, and he says that Advaita Acharya wanted to establish the movement. He came to establish the movement, and that was another lila. Prabhupada is explaining there, very interesting. It's on an Advaita Acharya's appearance day. And he said, but the lila is that he could not. I mean, he could, he says, because he's the Lord. Lord Shiva, Vishnu, Mahavishnu. Of course he could. But the mood is that to show the devotees to not think that I am able, I am capable. No, the mood is in our Caitanya line that we are not capable. That's our prayer. I am incapable. Therefore, Advaita cries out, I cannot do it. You have to come. If you don't come, this cannot be done. It's your desire, so you need to come. So then Lord Chaitanya comes. But when Lord Chaitanya comes, he comes Dharma Shastapanataya. He wants to establish this Sankirtan movement, this Sankirtan Dharma. And he entrusted Lord Nityananda to do it because he was, his, as it says here, the best person. So again, he also says, as I said before, that Rupa Goswami understood what's in the mind of Krishna or Lord Chaitanya. Just like Prabhupada says, if you want to know the mind of Krishna, you know what you have to do? When we see Krishna, we see him beautiful, but we don't see the mind, right? Like I'm seeing you, I don't know what you're thinking, how long this is going to go for, what's going to be the preps at noontime, I don't know, right? We see someone, we don't see what they are thinking. So Prabhupada explained, if you want to know the mind of Krishna, you have to open the Bhagavad Gita. Because in the Bhagavad Gita, he says many times, a few times, Mama Matir. Mama Matir. This is what it's in my mind. This is what I'm thinking. This is my opinion. Prabhupada translate, this is my opinion. This is my opinion. So, Sri Chaitanya Manovistam means what Krishna wanted. And the Goswamis understood that, led by Rupa Goswami. The Parampara understood that. And Nityananda Prabhu particularly understood that more and better than anyone else. And Prabhupada explains that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he meditated on Lord Nityananda in order to fulfill Lord Chaitanya's mission. And he attributes Lord Nityananda, and he calls Nitai's marketplace, right? Nitai's marketplace. And he named Nityananda like what would be the equivalent? The CEO, the main one, Lord Nityananda. He's the boss, right? So sometimes we may think, okay, but no, the boss is Krishna or Lord Chaitanya. No, but he's the boss. He's the one who's entrusted. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur called himself the sweeper of the marketplace. So the marketplace, or the Namahata, or as it is translated into the modern world, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, is no different from Krishna, right? That's according to Prabhupada's statements. And that statement in itself is a bit hard to swallow because sometimes so many things, so many problems we create or mistakes that we commit, like that. But just like when we go to the dam, it is explained, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that above the dam there is a thin layer of material nature, right? And my spiritual master Srila Jayapataka Maharaj was explaining the other night that whatever wrong happens in the dam, we hear about things and we see, I live there. It's not happening on the platform of the dam. The transcendental, that's not the transcendental platform. Whatever happens wrongly or materially, we may say, criminal sometimes, it happens on that layer, like that. But the pure devotees, they can see, the great souls, they can see the spiritual world there. But beyond the dam, the desire of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was that the whole world becomes the spiritual world. And that's why Prabhupada established that practice of calling the different places new. San Francisco he called New Jagannath Puri, and then New Vrindavan, and New Dwarka, Los Angeles. New, right? And then he said, If the British did it, why can we? Right? We have New South Wales, and we have different things. It just explains like that. Because originally that's in the UK, and some of those places are New York, for example. This is new, so Prabhupada called New Vrindavan. He applied it the same. So Lord Chaitanya, he wanted this movement to be all over the world. And Lord Nityananda, he took it upon himself and established the model and did it in Navadvip. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, meditating on that structure. And what is the structure? It's quite simple, actually. Much more simpler than what we think. Sometimes with this big organization and all the legalities and all the headaches the managers have to take upon themselves, right? Sometimes it might seem a bit difficult to understand how is it that we're gonna, But the formula of Lord Chaitanya is actually quite simple, and it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He says in every home. He says in town and village, right? But Prabhupada says in every home, in every neighborhood, in every family. I've been doing some research for my Guru Maharaj on this topic, and I found some incredible things that Prabhupada says. Every family, every home, every neighborhood. Like that, And in all these locations, just a small group, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says 5 to 10. And even Prabhupada in the Gita, chapter 13, text 8 to 12, where he gives the 20 elements of knowledge, Prabhupada explains there that any grihasta can be totally happy by simply chanting, reading Bhagavad Gita, honoring prasadam, worshipping the deity. Just these 4 things will make life perfect and happy. And at some point, I don't know if it's in the Gita purport, but Prabhupada comments about this. And he says, even if we don't have instruments, if you don't have instruments, what do? 1, 2, 3, like he was teaching in New York. So he applied that formula. He did exactly the same thing. A small group of devotees in New York. How many were there when he left after, I think, 10 months of preaching there? 7 devotees, full-timers. Right? And he went to San Francisco. Right? And then he did the same. Right? And as I was saying the other day in the class, you know how this movement has started? Like sometimes one of the criticism to our movement is that we fight. Right? Do we? Right? Does it happen in Perth? People criticize, and there are some differences, and there are some parties, and I don't like you, you don't like me, etc. It goes on like that. Rasa? Does it? Just to put some spices. So there's some fights, sometimes big fights, sometimes small fights. But the movement, how Prabhupada was so clever, that Prabhupada utilized this phenomena, especially in the Westerners. I mean, come on, Indians also fight quite a lot, I know. He used that, right, to open up more temples. There were 5 people, 10 people, and they would have some clashes, and Prabhupada would pull them aside and said, you cannot work with him, isn't it? No, Prabhupada, but he's like this. Prabhupada was like, I heard a few. I don't want to say names. But from the original temple of New York, there were some heavy fights. And they were just, I think at that point when that happened, it was like not even 20 devotees. Right? And Prabhupada said, why don't you go to Canada and open a temple there? So sure enough, the devotee went, he took a car from a friend, drove across the border, and opened the first temple in Canada, Haribol. So Prabhupada did and utilized that in order for us to expand. Of course, that's not to encourage that we fight. We're supposed to, come on. But, so anything can be used in Krishna consciousness. And this movement is expanding despite whatever mistakes and shortcomings we may have, and despite that as a group sometimes we have This is Sri Chaitanya Manovistam and Lord Nityananda as presented by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his many writings, and particularly in the Sri Godruma Kalpatavi. He describes this marketplace just like a big shopping center, or like this, Prabhupada said, like this, what do you call? Transnational, like, multinational companies, right? And then you have all these big names. You have, Apple and Toyota and whatever names, everywhere you go. And you find, from cars to electronics to shoes, everywhere. And they work it out that in each country, in each continent, they have representation, as they call it. And then they have shops and like that, isn't it? That they are already doing it. Bhaktisiddhanta said they are working harder than us. And they're already organized. And if they have problems, they have systems. They have policy, they have grievance and procedures and things like that. So they work it out. They are materialistic, karmis, demons, whatever. But they work it out for the purpose. And they grow and expand. Right? According sometimes to our reasoning, they will be eating each other. Yeah, they will be killing each other. Sometimes they do, but they work it out. And some of these companies are growing and growing and growing, correct? Everywhere for decades. Yeah, they're all going to die. It's all for my... Yeah. But Prabhupada told my Guru Maharaj and Achyutananda Swami to observe how some of these big institutions are established in India and learn from them. Some of these things we have to learn. Anyway, so we can go many areas in order to highlight that. But the idea is that this is what Lord Chaitanya wanted. This is what Lord Nityananda did. So he understood the order of the boss, as Krishna explains in the Gita. Right? I am the boss. That's why absolute means the boss, to make it simple. So Lord Nityananda took that order and he established it in Puri, as it is mentioned here, and he established it in Bengal. Right? And other nearby places, like that, as it is recorded. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur appeared. He revived it after, I think, 400 years or something, which is called the Dark Age of Vaishnavism by some of the academics. I think I don't know if it was 200 or 400, but it was quite some time that the movement was pretty much hidden from public view. There were some Babajis and there were so many deviations and things like that. So it was not good. So then Bhaktivinoda Thakur comes and he reestablished the Namahata, right? And he organizes small groups. He trains people. He starts writing the manuals and the KPIs, key performance indicators, and the handbooks, and establishes the procedures. And he himself did it, and he establishes 500 or more from what is recorded. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in his Sajana Toshani, you can find still so many direct reports from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Bhaktivinoda Thakur of how they did it. So this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur, like Jadvaita Maharaj, he calls the patron of Grihastas. The patron. Like you have sometimes a saint patron like that, you have so jokingly he says, all Grihastas should look up to him. And he had 10 sons. Sometimes it says 12, sometimes 13. Different biographers, they say different numbers. So who has 10 sons here? No one has, right? You got 3. How many you got? 2. So he had 10 or more, right? And he did it. He established 500 groups. Apart from his job, he had a job. He has a few properties. He wrote so many books, and he did it. So there's no excuse. Maharaj was explaining in Mayapur. He says, oh yeah, but he was a Grihasta. Yeah, but he did a lot of preaching. So that's Lord Nityananda's message, embodied by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the form of Namahata, house to house, in every town and village. I was just thinking that we should have here in Perth a map of the city. I don't know how far we want to extend it, but we should have all the suburbs and see where we haven't entered. Right? Like now we are doing some programs in Brabant. You know that Brabant, there's right? Near Swambali, somewhere there. And I was just thinking that we need to have that mentality that we go there and put a red pin there and we say, okay, now we have a center there. And we go and at least once a month or once a week and we do programs and then we get people to chant Hare Krishna, to read Bhagavad Gita, hear Bhagavad Gita, learn Bhagavad Gita, etc. That's our mission. We have a big job. Prabhupada says in one purport in the Bhagavatam that every sincere follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement should go door to door, right? Door to door, and beg people to take this literature, right? And to chant Hare Krishna. This is our job. This is our main business, he says. So wherever we go, whatever country we go, whatever suburb we live, we try to establish, from, I don't know what's the top suburb now because they keep expanding, right? It used to be Butler. I used to live in Kinross. Now Gopal lives in Butler. And I don't know, the south expands or connects to Mandurah and then Rockingham. And now we're going to the south to Bunbury and Bustleton and, but we have to stretch, we have to have programs in every suburb. That's our mission, right? If we don't, then we're slacking. That's the idea. Okay, so we stop here. Today is Lord Nityananda. It's a great day to invoke Lord Nityananda's mercy. Narottam Das Thakur, Srila Prabhupada explained that without their mercy, without Lord Nityananda's mercy, we cannot get Lord Chaitanya's mercy. Without Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda's mercy, we cannot get Radha Krishna. And without our spiritual masters and the Vaishnavas, we cannot get Lord Nityananda's mercy. So that's how it works. We like it or not, right? And one last thing, he offers a super deal. Now that we are in the age of commercialization, I always say this every time you go onto Facebook or YouTube, one of these geniuses come up, he says, give me 30 seconds of your time and I will tell you how to become a millionaire in 2-3 weeks. And, it's like amazing, one after another. I know by heart some of them, it's always there. And of course, they are paying to be there. But Lord Nityananda, represented by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he offered a super deal. Super deal. Just like Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he offers the best life insurance that any job can offer you. I always say that too. Right? You go and work for someone, after some time you're retired. They give you some pension, get out of here because you're too old, useless. Lord Nityananda offers, Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda offers something that, the best business deal. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that they have a product and the product needs to be sold. And the only currency that it's needed to acquire that product is faith, Shraddha. It's like a coin, okay? And there is different divisions of coins and different products that you can get. Like when I was buying a computer and they say, so you want extra this, you want warranty, extra warranty, you want that. So many things you can add. So if you want the name, you can get the name. Everybody, when Prabhu goes on Harinam, and then right? Everyone can get the name. Hare Krishna, no problem. But then you want more sweetness. Huh? Nama, Rasa, Rupa, Guna, Lila. You want more? Yes, you can have, but you have to pay more. You have to have more faith. So that's the product, and there's some dynamics about it. But the most interesting part is that if you give this to somebody, right? If you give this to somebody, your currency increases. I know it has a bad wrapping. The multi-level pyramid, whatever. Yeah, a scheme. Yeah, I know it's illegal in many places. And anyway, but the idea is that the more we give this, right? We're investing, no? We're investing. Invest our time, invest our effort, our words, whatever, money and house or whatever. The more we invest, the more we get. That's simple, right? The more you invest, the more you get. Now, if you invest in someone, and that someone keeps investing, keeps preaching, that is, and then he gets a few people, 5 to 10, gets them home. Whatever they get and whatever he gets, or she, you get. Right? So not only your money is reimbursed, but increased many folds. That's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur explained. He says, that's Lord Nityananda's mercy. And I remember the first time when I read, Prabhupada says in one, several times, but a purport in the Gita, he says, the devotee is more merciful than the Lord. You remember that? How is that? I said, no. This person, this person must be wrong. This man must be wrong. He's exaggerating. I remember I was battling with Prabhupada. But the more we know, the more that we hear, the more that we learn, it is clear that it's clear. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, what's his order? Surrendered unto me. Right? And Prabhupada says in one of the purports to the Vaishnava songs, he says, but Lord Caitanya and Lord Nityananda, I think it's Paramakaruna in that purport. What do they say? Do they say surrender? What do they say? Kevala Ananda Kanda, which means chant, dance, and feast. Right? Chant, dance, and feast. Who doesn't want to chant? Who doesn't want to dance? Who doesn't want to feast? Right? So everybody wants. Okay, just do it with Krishna. That's all. So Lord Chaitanya has even a more merciful approach than the Lord. And Lord Nityananda even has a more merciful approach than Lord Chaitanya. And that's the mood. The parampara comes down, and Prabhupada made it even more approachable, more merciful. And several times Prabhupada said, this world is full of Jagais and Madais. Full of Jagais and Madais. There's one set of Jagai and Madais. Here Jagai and Madais everywhere. That's why several times also it is recorded that Prabhupada said that Lord Nityananda came for a Ratha Yatra or for a program. I think in a program where Tamal Krishna Maharaj came the first time. Anyway, several times Prabhupada said, didn't you see Lord Nityananda? Didn't you see Narada Muni? Huh? One time we were in Kirtan Mela in Mayapur a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. And my Guru Maharaj wasn't too well, as usual, with his health. But Sachinanda Maharaj really wanted him to come down. So he sent a request. Maharaj, you have to come, please. He's I don't know which night was there. I don't know, second night or third night, I forgot. So he said, you have to come down. So he was pushing. So the secretary was telling my Guru Maharaj, they are saying you have to come. And you said that you may come. So they have to come. So he said, okay, get ready. Let's go. Getting ready means, a lot of things, dress and putting here, there, have like 10 people to carry and security. And it's a whole operation to get him down because everyone jumps to his feet. So we came down and then they made him sing. I was watching the video yesterday. They made him sing. And so some of us were helping him to stand up. So we stood him up, and he was his right side, it's paralyzed. So he cannot really coordinate. So we have to hold him like that, and he cannot stand on his own. So there were like 3-4 people grabbing him. And I remember I was holding him. I'll put my hand here on his dhoti, because otherwise he's heavy, so he can fall. So he was there, he's trying to dance, and he was singing and like that, And then all of a sudden, in the middle of the chanting, he started laughing out loud. Yeah, laughing like he's like Hare Krishna, Krishna, start laughing. And then everyone was, but anyway, people kept chanting, kept responding. It was like hundreds of devotees. They're all the best Mirdanga players, the best singers, the best harmonium players. The cream of the cream are there. And he's laughing, and he kept saying, hey, and he was shaking. And I was thinking, gee, what's this, Anyway, so then after a while, he sits down, and then he says, okay, I have to go. So close it. He said a few things, and then we took him up. And generally, I try not to bother. I just, But then I thought, no, I have to ask this. This doesn't going to stay like that. And then, so I went with him, and we were there sitting him to have dinner. So I said, Guru Maharaj, we were moving him from the wheelchair to this seat. We stood him up again, and I said, "What happened down there?" You often do that. You laugh in the middle of something, sometimes in the talk about it. I mean, it's understandable because you're like, feeling ecstatic or dramatizing the situation or something. But you're in the middle of chanting, and all these hundreds of people, not thousands, or I don't know, seeing you, and you start laughing. Like, what happened? Like a shout laughing, and I felt like electrified. I remember. So I asked him, and he said, "So when the body was here, I was here, the same one, Ruch." And then he said, "You didn't see? You didn't see? You didn't see?" I said, I saw you laughing and shaking. That's all what I saw. And many people shocked by what you... And he says, no. You see, Lord Nityananda is pushing Advaita. And Advaita is pushing Nityananda. And Caitanya is saying, let's get them all. Let's get them all. And he says, and there everyone is pushing. Everyone is so ecstatic. The Panchatattva is running after us. You see, we are all chanting. And they are running to us. Every time we chant, they're running to us and they're pushing each other. Get that one, don't let that guy. He says, you know why they have their hands up like that? So nobody escapes. Like a goalkeeper? Like, it's gonna, so you are like, So he says, they are like this with the hands extending because they don't want to let anybody go. Get him, get them all. How can you know? It's just ecstatic. And then, and then we just sat him down. I said, Guru Maharaj, okay, dinner, because we're getting dinner. So that's the mood of Lord Nityananda, Lord Caitanya. I mean, Srila Prabhupada, when he went to a few places and he was about to sing the Parama Karuna song. It was in Atlanta, but also it happened in Venezuela. When he went, he just sang the first line and he stopped. He couldn't. He just, and everyone's, Prabhupada just in tears. So the song explains that there's no one more merciful. So Prabhupada, extended himself. He wanted to go to Colombia, but they didn't give him visas. And then he thought, okay, maybe we can, Rinanda Maharaj want to take him to different places, Brazil and Argentina and all that. He didn't go because it was difficult to get visas and he has an Indian passport and the whole thing. So because of that, but Prabhupada wanted to go. He was keen on traveling around South America, and he traveled to, Hong Kong and Russia and everything, because that was the mood. The mood is just give it to everybody. Why just my friends or the ones who like me or the ones that cooperate with me or obey me or something? No, everybody. That's the mood. Anyway, thank you very much. Lord Nityananda Trayodasi ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gauda Pramanandi.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare